So is this your first time being at the Reason Rally?
It is.
How do you liking it so far?
I like it a lot. It's great.
Wonderful. So when did you realize you became a secular agnostic or atheist? When was the first time that you realized that?
Well, I did not go down a religious path whatsoever.
Okay.
I sort of resisted it from a very early age. 6 years old, 7 years old.
6 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just wasn't going to, there was something about it that I didn't like. So I have, unlike some of my friends who had really extensive religious training and then came to the conclusion that it wasn't for them in their 20s or 30s, I just never had that journey.
That's amazing. So what is it like to be among the largest secular gathering here in the United States? What does it feel like to you?
I'm honored.
So what did you spoke about today earlier?
What did I speak about?
Yes.
I spoke about the fact that particularly religious Christian fundamentalists have taken the Bible, a book that was written 5,000 years ago by human beings, and have turned it into a sacred text which is somewhat is frozen in time, literal. And that while I have no problems about them believing that, I'm very concerned that kids are also beginning to believe that and are being trained to do that and actually come away thinking that the world was created 4004 BC, which is an absurdity. And it gets in their way of being successful in the 21st century if you keep on going around talking about 17th century nonsense.
Absolutely. I definitely remember my time when my folks brought me to Sunday school, I believe it was age 5, and had me brought up and continued brought up until my current age.
Yeah, and the thing is that along with it comes a series of superstitions and a series of like, oh my gosh, a little bit like, the extension of walking under a ladder or not walking under a ladder or the black cat or what have you. But it's much more pervasive, and it begins to inform what they're thinking. And it certainly informs what they're believing, and it gets in the way of any critical thinking. And we need critical thinking now, not imaginary, silly stuff that you are seeing a great deal of right now in this election cycle.
Yeah, speaking of the election, how do you feel, or what do you feel that the candidates need to do to have the candidates and seculars work together, instead of saying we believe in God and no one else?
Well, I mean, they need to work together, and they also need to perhaps not be catering to a portion of the segment of the population, allowing them to have any sort of political sway on them. I mean, the fact of the matter is that what has made this country great, one of the things, is the separation of church and state. There are many theocracies in the world, and as far as I'm concerned, none of them are very successful. We do not want a Christian Taliban here in the United States. And for them to, the Bible doesn't tell you how to make an airplane it's not a science book. It's just not a science book. One can derive all sorts of spiritual pleasure from from reading it, and contemplation, and how one should or should not behave, and what have you. But has no place in the scientific discourse whatsoever.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little about Star Trek, just a little bit.
Okay.
We're coming up on the 30th anniversary of The Next Generation, and you were the first villain, you were the last villain. How does it feel that your character has set the pace for Next Generation, and here we are almost 30 years later, and people still refer to you as Q?
Gene Roddenberry, on the second day of shooting, came up behind me, and I heard this voice, and he said, "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." And I turned around and I said, "Gene, what are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, you'll see. You will see." Well, here I am today.
Yeah.
Not in no small measure because of that. Something that I shot, only did 9 episodes of 29 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So one last question, and this is for directly to the camera. If you want to talk to the person who has been hiding in a closet, is afraid to tell people that they're agnostic, that they're an atheist, that they're secular, what would you tell them to say, don't be afraid anymore, you can do this?
I would say that there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. If they live in a community where this is of a major concern, then I would say there's another community which will embrace them fully. And that by stepping off this porch of religious dogma, they will step out into a world which is frankly far more wondrous and far more majestic than anything that could have been imagined 500 years ago. We have just come a long way, and come with us.